How's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Tuesday, January 21st, 2025 is the date. 11:13 a.m. That's California time here. Latest activity here on the earthquake map and the earthquake 3D globe. Looks like 3.0 here across the area of the Mediterranean. Normal activity out here today across that area. The rest of the region out here is still staying quite active. And more specifically up here across the area of Taiwan, Japan region. Early this morning, an earthquake coming in here to the southwestern edge here of the Nankai Trough. I've been talking about this quite a bit here in terms of the next big megaquake event. Man, it's got a lot of squeeze going on across this subduction zone right now due to all the elevated activity out here, and it's starting to show. So there's a 4.4 about 5 o'clock local time here, California time. The latest quake, though, is going to be a 5.1 here across the area of southern Taiwan. So over the last couple days, we've seen a major increase here across the Filipino plate. That's going to be this kind of a diamond-shaped, well, maybe not diamond, but this area right here in the pink salmon kind of color. That area of the region has a high slip rate all around it, western side, eastern side. Quite a bit of strain builds up here in a short amount of time due to all the plate dynamics here in this area, all the arrows pointing in this general fashion towards each other, making that a portion of the crunch zone. I call that the crunch zone because this is where all the plates tend to react to one another here, subduct or slide or pull apart. Either way, all the arrows are pointing towards this region here. So a lot going on here across the area in general across this region. The Nankai Trough here is under quite a bit of strain, and it's I think it could be overdue here, or at least coming up due in terms of the potential for a megaquake. If we look here on the map of the historical data points, the last major earthquake activity out here was back in 1944 and 1946 with a sequence of events here. C and D had a rupture, and then a couple years later, A and B. No rupture yet from E. That's a segment over here. That last ruptured back in 1854. They believe E was involved in that as well, with a very close time period there between those two events. 12/23/1854 for an M8.4, and then one day later another M8.4 over here across this segment. Prior to that, looks like another full rupture on one date back in 1707 for an M8.6. So the last time we had something that ruptured with A, B, C, and D and leaving out E, well, it was about 100 years later when a full rupture took place. So there's a little concern here, with not having E, this segment over here, having any rupture activity since 1854. So it's a lot of time that has passed, and things could be getting very active out here soon across that region. And that's very capable of producing, as we've seen there, mid-8s, upper 8s, even the scenario potential there for a 9.0 across this major subduction zone. And again, this is a region that the Japanese government put out a megaquake increasing warning last year around August when we seen elevated seismic activity out here. We look for these little increasing strain earthquakes, and this area specifically right here has been showing it quite nicely. That's a region where they had a 6.8 and some 5s and 4s. And this specific area also last year in August had a decent amount of earthquake activity, but nothing going on here across the building strain of this plate boundary. The Kumano Ridge, the Nankai Trough, is sitting there in a prime region with all this earthquake activity happening around it, but it's just sitting there waiting, building up steam. And it could go at any second in terms of seeing that larger scale activity. I mean, there's earthquake pretty much encircling that entire subduction zone region. So it has to be under some enormous strain out there. 4.0, a little bit further up along the plate boundary early this morning, 164 miles deep. Just a lot going on out here in general across this area of the world. And, the only thing I can think of here is watching some areas that are overdue in terms of the megaquake potential. And that's at least one of them out there, the subduction zone. Nankai Trough Area. That would be a devastating event for this area, ultimately producing a tsunami as well. All right, so the last 24 hours of earthquake activity out here still shows some amplified conditions, as noted there across the Filipino plate. Not so much newer activity here across the Mariana Islands. These events here were from yesterday. Nothing new to report today, but the crunch is going on here across this area. Alaska has been having a little bit of earthquake activity today up here, up along the Aleutian Trench with a 5-pointer. And a more recent 4.4 in this area. That's another major subduction zone region that can see some big earthquakes up around the 9 range or so. That, as you can see, where the 2 arrows point, anywhere on the map is a subduction zone. The average slip rate here runs about 71 mm per year, increasing more as you go westward along this plate boundary. Last decent earthquake out here. I know we had an 8-pointer back in 2021 right across this region. May see some activity here as well. That could happen anywhere. These major subduction zones that's where the big 8-pointers occur and higher. So keep an eye on the Aleutian Trench there. Definitely on the move. Up here in Washington area, been watching some earthquake activity out here. A couple more this morning, but these are we got one over here for a 2.4 and a little one in between this event activity as well. I think it has something to do with the broad scale strain out here on the Cascadia subduction zone. I mean, we talk a lot about subduction zones, and many subduction zones haven't seen a big earthquake in hundreds of years. The Cascadia, 325 years now since the last big earthquake. Full rupture. There's always some concern of a partial rupture. Even up here, the Cascadia could see a partial rupture, not a full unzip, resulting in a mid-8 or so. Southern California, the more likely place, or southern area of the Cascadia, more likely place for a partial rupture. But watching this up here as well, there's a lot of strain inland, just off the Seattle fault here with a swarm of earthquakes yesterday. One more today, a little 1.9. Started off there with a 3.5, it looks like, yesterday afternoon. But even previous to that, there was a couple smaller quakes out here back on the 15th. And again, a couple of those from yesterday. So keep an eye there across that region. Just there's a whole lot going on out here. Northern California, a couple more earthquakes today, including a 3-pointer just off the plate boundary. 1.9 just off the plate boundary as well. Increasing strain out here across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Even though this earthquake activity is off the plate boundary here, it still needs to be watched here in the southern end of that Cascadia subduction zone. We've seen a lot of inland earthquake activity here recently. Excuse me, not so much right now, but over in the past 30 days or so, maybe even more than that, a trail of earthquakes up here across the Coast Range, just where we would expect strain to be showing there at the surface levels due to the increasing pressure out here on the Cascadia. A lot going on here across the mountain ranges around Shasta and stuff, and even some activity underneath Lake Almanor within the last 30 days. But keeping an eye on it, folks. Anything can happen at any given time. We got to watch for these little events here that give us a little, maybe a telltale sign here of things to come. The Clear Lake volcanic field. This is not it's volcanic activity underneath the region. Obviously, there's a hot spot, but these induced earthquakes are a result of man-made operations here at the energy plants. I'll show you guys on the satellite view real quick. There's a number of them. They're geothermal plants that are tapping into the heated areas below, and they are famous for producing earthquakes on any given day. 44 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. The last 30 days, well, there you go, 1,257 earthquakes. That's a lot of earthquake activity, but at the same time, it's not volcanic. It is geothermal. operations there. There's a whole process involved that produces earthquakes as well. The Bay Area, a couple earthquakes there from yesterday. Really nothing major going on there across San Francisco region for now. The San Andreas Fault here, as we look down south. A handful of earthquakes. Last night we're watching this little swarm out here near the Mentone region. 2.9, the largest in this sequence of events. One more, well, actually a couple earthquakes there just after midnight, 1.2 and a 1.1, but nothing since then, at least that's being reported. That is just off the San Andreas Fault here. Southern California has been another region of increasing earthquake activity recently. A lot of fours last year. 2024 had more fours in that given time period than at any time since the mid-'80s. So things were really on the uptick out here. That's the time when we need to be on guard. This threat obviously has not gone away. These 4-pointers that we've seen last year did not relieve any strain that's been building up here across the San Andreas Fault and various other fault systems out here. This area of the plate boundary, the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, is capable of producing an 8.1 earthquake, and it's been over 300 years since that ruptured down here. Southern Utah, out around Boulder Town, a 3.5 earthquake here. A lot of intermountain regional earthquake activity here recently. As you can see, the last 7 days showing the strain building up out here across this mountain range. Kind of focus in on that. Including Yellowstone over here. It doesn't look like they've included some of these earthquakes from yesterday, though. In the last couple of days, there's been a little earthquake swarm around the Hebgen Lake area. Let me see what we got for the seismograph stations here across Yellowstone. See if there's anything else going on here today. We got some, looks like wind events out there in the darker blue. That's very typical. I've shown this hundreds of times. That's wind. Earthquake activity. Hard to say. I don't see anything of any noteworthy value. The earthquake activity we were watching yesterday is off the chart now. There's maybe a couple more, some very small spiky earthquakes, but just a little disappointed that they didn't include the ones here from a couple days from yesterday morning, which would be beyond the 24-hour threshold. But I mean, the ones that they are showing back on the 14th, a little 2.4. But they normally don't report all the smaller quakes that happen out there across Yellowstone unless there's a big-time earthquake swarm. Then they'll focus a little bit more on it. But yeah, either way, it was earthquake activity, stress-related out here across the West Coast and the Rocky Mountain regions here. A lot of strain building up out here across the plate boundary. Texas oil fields getting hit with a bunch of earthquakes there from yesterday. A couple more today out around Mentone, Texas, and Midland. New Madrid seismic zone north here, outside the area in Missouri, a 2.4 from late last night. Eastern portion of the country quiet. Weather, snow out there, shutting things down. They're not used to it. We'll take a look at that here in just a minute. For the rest of the area out here, got some further movement in the last hour in the Kermadec Ridge area, 18 miles deep here for the 4.8. That is showing up on the USGS map. Not so much going on down there across New Zealand, but that's another hotspot area for a big-time earthquake potential. A lot of new activity out here across this region today. So, again, I keep saying it, but the Nankai Trough needs to be watched pretty closely. Trail of earthquakes across the Java Trench, a bunch of 2s and 3s. Nothing big going on there for now, just some small adjustment. Little cluster out here across the Himalaya region where they had that 7-pointer here a few days ago, or has it been a couple weeks? Within the last couple weeks here. Seems like time's just flying by out here. The Atlantic Ocean, a little swarming going on yesterday. A bunch of 4s and 5s out here. Let's pull this up. Down here across the one of these little fracture zones. It's not named out here, but this is a spreading seafloor center. Obviously, it's been gaining momentum throughout many years, and it continues. It will continue. Periodically, we do see these earthquake swarms in 4s and 5s. They really don't get much bigger than a low 6 out here. Again, there's the stress or the plate boundary out here. Again, is a spreading seafloor center with some fracture boundaries, but we don't build up, energy for an 8-pointer as a subduction zone would. So for now, a bunch of 4s and 5s out there from yesterday. That could potentially increase further straining out here across the southern plates. That includes South America area. As noted, right here, you got the spreading seafloor center. The arrows pointing apart. That could obviously kick things into motion, maybe amplify conditions here across the Mediterranean, and so on. Just got to follow the arrows out here in the general pattern of the plates. Let's see, there's that 5-pointer in Taiwan. Low earthquake off the tip there of South America, or South Africa, 3.2. So a lot going on here, folks. A lot of earthquake activity in the last 24 hours, and it's continuing. It has not let up yet. Yesterday was the same fashion out here. A lot of earthquake activity happening in this same general area. So be on guard. Something brewing out here in a big fashion. Middle America Trench area, a little bit of swarming going on there this morning and late last night, it looks like. Nothing big there across Southern California for now, but there's always going to be quiet times followed up here by increasing movement. Quick glance here at the space weather activity. A little M flare this morning, or late last night, I should say, from, I believe that was from 3967 here. AR 3967 producing M3.3. Not a big flare. That's a scattered area over here, but it looks like it has grown a little bit in terms of complexity here. Very hard to tell, but there is some intermixing blue, kind of in a little train fashion here. So we'll watch that. They may be growing here. This regional sunspot, as massive as it is, looks like it's, I don't know, it looks about the same as yesterday, maybe a little bit less active in terms of complexity within that core. So, we have a chance here of seeing some further M flare activity. I think our X flare threat has completely diminished out here, just looking at these sunspots and the complexity magnetogram image, but we'll continue to watch it. Not a whole lot going on across the far eastern limb. Our far side tracker here is still offline. Hopefully they get this up and running. We used to use this to see what's coming around the far side of the sun. It's very useful into determining, maybe potential large sunspots getting ready to turn into the Earth-directed view, but that's been down for a little while. There's 3961, massive sunspot area. But it's got, it needs a little bit more growth within this center core to produce some massive flares, which I don't know if it's going to do or not. Overall flare threat, 20% chance for the X flare. I think that's a little bit lower than that. 65 for M flare. No major roars in the forecast there for now. A little bit of unsettled conditions across the higher latitudes. It's probably just due to some normal, typical background solar wind streams that is flowing towards the Earth. But really not expecting anything major. No major severe weather. But there is, there's some pretty cool snow going on out there. These folks may not like it. Maybe they do. But down there all across the Gulf Coast states there, even offshore, getting a lot of snow in Louisiana, Texas. No cars on the road. Maybe a couple of them out there. But you might want to have four-wheel drive on a day like today. This is, wow, this is I-45 at West Dallas in the Houston area. Wait, let's see. There's the Houston area. A little bit further south. Look at that. I've been on some of those roads there. Looks a little slippery. Not so much going on there in terms of traffic here on the Tuesday. And that Let's see, around the Corpus Christi area. That's that's the ocean waves out there. I don't see too much snow down there, but Louisiana definitely got a whole bunch, and it looks pretty crazy down there. I'm sure if the kids are home from school, they're probably enjoying the snow day out there, which probably doesn't happen all that often, but it is neat to see. Definitely, even some snow around the Florida Panhandle. Absolutely crazy. Out here in California, high and dry around my neck of the woods. Still some greenery out here going on, but there's not a whole lot in the forecast here. We do have some cooler weather coming with a low pressure system dropping straight out of the north as we head here in a few days. I'll show you guys this system right here. Low pressure system bringing in some cold air out of the north. All that's going to do is really pick up the wind here, drop the temperature in Northern California, limited moisture. But there may be just enough there to squeeze out some rain showers, maybe some snow in the higher elevations in Southern California, which they haven't seen a drop of rain in like 10 months. But after that, still nothing there across California. Some weak storms there across the Pacific Northwest, but it's, oh man, if February is the same way, we are going to be in trouble. These are two of our wettest months of the year, January and February. 1/4 of an inch of rain in January. Should be up around probably 3 to 4 inches on average. Quick glance here at the fire conditions down in Southern California. There's a little fire that started up here yesterday. I think it was the lilac fire. That is 30% contained. A couple of small ones that started up here overnight. Here's one that's going. It looks like one Waterton had requested. This is just little 1/3 acre vegetation fire. As far as any major big ones going on there across Southern California, it looks like good news for now. It's not going. No further hot spots out there being observed. No flare-ups that I can see. 63% containment with the Palisades fire, and the Eaton fire over here just about contained 100% there at 89% containment. No hot spots being observed, no flare-ups, and that's good news there for the folks hoping to get back in there and rebuild eventually. Aside from that, no major fires up there across Northern California, the West Coast in general. Looks like a little one out in, where's this at? Nevada, outside of Mesquite. New fire. Maybe somebody burning some trash out there. Who knows? Looks like it's just off this little riverbank. Anyway, yeah, so we'll kind of watch things here today, folks, with the elevated earthquake activity happening out around this area of the globe. There's a lot of movement going on here. You got to remember, when this Pacific plate moves, it's a massive plate. And right now we're getting even some newer activity up here across the northern edge of the Pacific plate, the Aleutian Trench. So that tells me right here this is continuing to add strain all across this area in that major subduction zone. I'm not really too concerned with the Japan Trench. They had that 9-pointer back in 2011. The Kuril-Kamchatka Trench is another player that hasn't seen a big earthquake in a while. I'm talking about something above an 8, which is very capable of. And that's awfully quiet as well. That's got to be under quite a bit of strain. So we'll just watch things and see how it goes today, folks. Not quite 100% normal. I don't know what it is, just lingering here with the cold. Hopefully I'll be on tap here to be back to normal soon. Have a good one. Keep an eye on things out here. I do have a number of seismograph stations all around the globe here that are monitoring the live activity. Right now, things looking pretty quiet for now in terms of the seismograph stations, but elevated activity happening. Have a good one. We'll see you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening.